Today, November 21st, 2019, is my 55th birthday. In this episode of the iCantCU podcast, I'll take a look back over the last year and what I've learned and what I hope to learn moving forward. And I'm going to give you an update about a problem I had with my finger.
From Studio C, welcome to the iCantCU podcast with David. He can't see, but he's got a lot to say and a face for radio.
Hello, and welcome to episode 49 of the iCantCU podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. And today I want to focus on Facebook because on Facebook I am running a fundraiser for my birthday. So that would be facebook.com/DavidBenj. Take a look for the fundraiser. I'm trying to raise money for the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. And I hope you can get a chance to get over there and give a little something for it. Again, no amount is too small. So please help out if you can. And as I mentioned, it is my birthday. And so every year, obviously, there's a couple times a year you kind of take a look forward and a look back. Usually it's your birthday and New Year's Day, or right at the beginning of the year. And so with my birthday today, it's kind of sad because, after I get done recording this and publish it in a little bit, I'm going to go take a ride out to visit my mom. My mom is in hospice. This will be the last birthday I get to spend with her. And, that's kind of sad thinking back to all the different birthdays I had back when I was a little kid. And we used to have a long table in our garage where all my friends or classmates, I don't think I have as many friends now as I had at some of those parties. So that it's kind of funny. And so I'll go out and spend some time with her, and talk with her. And fortunately, she's still eating a little bit. So, to be honest, I'm just hoping she makes it through the day. I don't want to think about every year when it's my birthday to think that was her last day. So I am looking forward to spending some time with my mom this afternoon, and then tonight Liz and maybe Jacob and I will go out to eat dinner, and we're trying barbecue this year. There's a Mission barbecue that just opened up not too far from our house, and we've always wanted to try the one that was out in King of Prussia, but obviously in King of Prussia there seemed like better options. So now we have something close. We'll give it a try. So I'm looking forward to that. And, birthdays, some people don't like them. They think, oh, I'm another year older. Oh, I'm good, whatever. And it was never played into it. As a kid, I always loved birthdays. I always loved doing stuff for my birthday. Over the years, when my birthday is falling close to a weekend, it ended up being a weekend full of events with my friends and family and so forth. So, this year, I guess more than ever, and maybe it has to do with my mom being in hospice. I kind of take a look back at what went on over the last year and some of the stuff that I've learned. For example, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, one of the things that I've learned over the last year or so is that not everything that is wrong with me, if, I have a pain or something is not working right or whatever, doesn't always mean it's either vision related. For example, if, there are some days that I have terrible vision, even worse than normal. It's not necessarily due to a problem from one of the many eye issues that I have. Sometimes it might just be allergies or, a cold or whatever. Likewise, anytime something hurts me, I always assume that it's psoriatic related. And I'll touch on this later. And one of the things that I've learned is that that's not the case all the time. And we'll go into that a little more in depth in a few minutes. But I also take a look back and think, where did I want to be? When I thought back when I was 20 or 25 years old, what did I expect to be doing, at this stage of my life? And to be honest, it's obviously different than what I expected. When I was a kid and even a young adult, into my 20s, I always assumed that I would be I would have a business of some sort. And technically I do, but it's not what you expected back then. And yes, things are very different now where you can have a business online and you don't have to worry about employees and so forth and so on. We're not talking about a brick and mortar business. I always assumed that I would be doing some sort of, I don't know if I guess retail or something along those lines. For those of you who don't know me, my father was in supermarkets. He owned and operated over the course of his career 15 or 18 markets, not all at once. I think the most he had at once was 5 or 6. And most of them were not the markets that you see today where they're, 50 to 100,000 square feet. These were, some of them were small. Some of them were only 15,000 square feet. Some of them were large, like 45 or so thousand square feet, and he went where the chains wouldn't go. He started his career by helping my aunt when his brother, my uncle, died. Run a market in West Philadelphia. It was a pretty small market, again, probably in that 15 to 20,000 square foot range, and again, small by today's standards. And then he ended up buying that market from my aunt, and then he started buying other stores along the way. And where he would go, what his niche was, or niche, depending on what you want to say, he would go where the big chains weren't. Big chains wouldn't go into West Philadelphia in our area. There was too much theft. It was a little bit on the dangerous side because of, robberies and so forth. But because they wouldn't go there, there was an opening for a small operator like him, and that's where he would open. And in fact, he would buy, supermarkets that, Acme or A&P at the time, or some of the others, didn't want. He would buy the leases and sometimes fix them up if they were in decent shape. Sometimes it was just a matter of just rebranding it to the Thrift Way brand, which was the stores that the brand that he ran the markets under, and throughout his career, he, opened in West Philly. He opened then as he was in it longer. He had a store in Chester, had a store in Brookhaven, both in Delaware County, and those stores were very close to our house. We lived in Wallingford at the time, which was, only, probably 10 minutes to either of those stores when we lived in Wallingford. And, and then the last stores that he had in his career, he bought at auction. He bought, I want to say, A&P or Penn Fruit. I can't remember, but there were 4 stores in the state of Delaware, Wilmington, Claymont, Newcastle. And, by far the one in Newcastle was probably his biggest revenue generator of all of them. Whether it made as much money as some of the smaller stores, which he liked the smaller stores. He thought they were easier to operate, and it was just more, he knew the customers more, and obviously when you have 4 stores at a time, you're not in any one store for a long amount of time. Like, for example, the Chester store, which he owned for 5 years. The stores in West Philly, he would open and then sell off after a year or two. So I saw myself as I was growing up. I thought, okay, well, this is what my dad is doing. I kind of like that idea. After I left the University of Miami, after not being the greatest student, and again, maybe that is something that I got from my dad. He only went through 8th grade to school, so I didn't make it a little further than him. Once I figured I wasn't going to get into broadcasting, which I guess technically I'm doing right now, and again, this is what I always wanted to do, TV or radio, and as the beginning says, I have a face for radio, so that's why we're here and not on YouTube at this point, I guess. So once I got into business, and I worked at one of his old stores in Claymont, and then a friend looked at told me he was looking at a West Coast video franchise, which, I was interested in again because it was video, and, I ended up doing that and had a West Coast video franchise for around 13 years, which we closed in, I guess it was 1999, so 20 years ago. We shut that down. It was on a piece of property that my parents owned, and they had sold the property, and the people who bought it ended up knocking down. There was a supermarket there and and my video store. They knocked those two things down and built a CVS in Brookhaven. So that's that's where I kind of thought I was going. And as I after that happened, I thought, okay, well, let me find another business to get into. And I have been visually impaired my whole life, so that has always played into it. But just like when I was a kid, my parents never told me, oh, you can't do that because you can't see. Yeah, you want to try it? Go ahead. That's why I played Little League Baseball, and that's why I did some things. Now, the doctors always said, make sure he doesn't play any contact sports because, they were worried, again, congenital glaucoma, optic nerve not so strong. They were afraid any kind of bang to the head would be bad. Later on, it was clarified that when I talked to one of my glaucoma specialists, his name was Dr. Wilson. I said, "Do you have any? What can I do and what can I do?" He said, "Don't do anything where your head is below your heart for any extended amount of time, and if you're playing sports, don't get hit in the eye with a ball." So they were the things that I that I lived by, and at this point, my vision is not enough to even have a catch with any kind of ball. It'd be interesting to see. I haven't even tried to throw a ball for any kind of distance in a while, and with the psoriatic arthritis, I'm not sure how good that would be. So I think those days are behind me, and and that's one of the things that obviously you change as you get older, and that is stuff that I miss. I miss going to the gym. We used to go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. For a while, we would use the weight circuit when it became difficult, and I would go on my own. I couldn't do the weight circuit because I couldn't adjust the weights. I couldn't do the machines, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, and as the National Federation of the Blind have tried to fix. Most machines, most exercise equipment is not accessible for blind and visually impaired, especially the newer ones with the touch screens where you have no idea what you're touching on the screen, and there's nothing tactile on them to give you an idea of what what the settings are or anything like that. So we would just walk the track, which again, I'd walk the track without my white cane, so that could be an issue as well, especially where we went. So we don't go to the gym anymore. Liz works too much to go. She's exhausted, 3 days a week, as I've said. She doesn't get home till 6:30. Actually 6:15, 6:30, because she's on till 6. She works extended day, and if I could spend an hour with her watching TV, it's a good night. Because she's usually out, sleeping before the end of most shows. So getting out and doing things, it changed. And when she wasn't working the extended day hours, getting to the gym was my time out. I might not have left the house. We lived in a place where there was no public transit close by, so it was a long walk on a street that had no sidewalks for a good stretch. And to be honest, I was just I just didn't want to chance walking on the shoulder, which may have only been a foot wide, and I just wasn't comfortable that I wouldn't wander over the wrong side of the white line. So where we are now in Swarthmore, I can walk over to CVS if I need to get prescription, and again, I'll touch on it later with my finger. It's a 2 or 3 minute walk. It's very close. There are other places close. As I mentioned in my last episode where I went into Philadelphia, I was able to walk home from the train station in Swarthmore, which was, around a mile away. So I am closer, and sidewalks all the way, I might add. Not all of them in great shape, but there are sidewalks. And, so that makes things easier for me. And that's moving forward, looking ahead, that's, because of the psoriatic issues that I've got, I want to move to where it's warm, where, it's not cold and, my body doesn't hurt every morning when I wake up. And that place might not exist. But anything less than what it is, especially in the cold months here, would be great. So moving forward, I'm hoping to do some things that when we do decide to move in it, I don't think it'll be anytime soon. I always said that, once my mom passed away, I'd be ready to look somewhere else. I don't know that Liz is on that same page because her mother still lives locally. Although I think if we could find something somewhere else where it's warm and I think both of us want some sort of water nearby, whether it's an ocean, a lake. We were in Vegas, as everyone knows, over the summer for the National Federation of the Blind National Convention. And I did feel better when I was out there. And my skin, the psoriasis, it's knock wood, my psoriasis, the skin-related stuff is not terrible at this point. But it did improve when I was out there. Again, no water nearby, though. We'd like, again, both of us would like. And so that kind of lets out, Arizona and Nevada and some of those places. Florida, I'm not so sure on humidity, whatever. I've always talked about moving to like the U.S. Virgin Islands, still in the United States, but in the Caribbean and in the tropics. So, in fact, my Blind Abilities football team name is the St. Croix Anole, and on St. Croix there's one end of the island is almost desert-like. So I guess the first thing we have to do before we decide to move there is actually go and visit, because of the U.S. Virgin Islands. That one I have not been to. And Liz has not been to any of them. We would consider that. We would consider elsewhere. And, so that's what we're looking forward to. And that, of course, brings you, okay, well, if you move to someplace like that, what are we going to do for income? Liz likes teaching, although I don't know that she would want to move somewhere else and still teach. She's always wanted to teach and again, she likes teaching it. And, it's around this time of year she starts wondering, why do I want to do this? And the kids, she gets a little tired of the kids, and I'm sure the kids get a little tired of her. And again, if you haven't listened to previous episodes, she is a preschool teacher in a Montessori school called the Walden School in Media. And her classroom has kids from around 2.5 years old to kindergarten, which is around 6, I believe. So if I were in her class today, I would do that one walk around the sun as they do when it's the kids' birthdays and they are all sitting at circle. And I would do that walk around the sun for one more year. And, I think she would want to still do something like that. I don't know. I'm trying to convince her, let's do a podcast together, and I don't know what we would do it on. We'd have to kick that around, or let's do YouTube or something. The goal for me would be to build up the affiliate marketing income where first it would pay for our medical insurance. It would pay for, Jacob's going to be 26 at his next birthday. He's still on our insurance and can stay on through the calendar year that he turns 26. So we have about a year left for that. And then afterwards, he would have to go to something else, whether it's something he works at Target, something, through the employer, or something out of pocket. So, and Jane is still on since she's only going to be 23. She has a couple more years, but they offer medical insurance where she works. But at this point, it's cheaper because of the, the way that Walden has set it up, it's cheaper to get it, through Liz's work. And that's how we get our medical insurance now. But my goal would be to have enough affiliate marketing income to pay, and I don't know how much it would be, I'm guessing about $2,000 a month, to pay for medical insurance for the four of us, through the company that we have called Digital Graphics Design. Obviously I think we'd have to put the kids on as owners, which again wouldn't be a big deal. I'm not looking to get into a business where I have employees, and that's, some folks at the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania had said to me, why don't you think about doing the merchants program that's set up? And again, quite frankly, I don't want to have a business that has employees. I don't mind having a business where I have to go to vendors to purchase goods and services. That I'm okay with, but I don't want to have employees. Not that I have anything against the employees at the West Coast Video. Most of those folks were great. And again, any business, you're going to have a couple. But at the video store, and I'm still friends with a lot of folks, both on Facebook and I see them, throughout the year here and there, and we're still friendly, 20 years after we closed. But when we bought Salon Supplies and Interiors, back in 2006, there were some things there that I couldn't do, and I had to rely on the employees that were there. And that wasn't a good situation as far as I'm concerned, because it's, I had to rely on them. So when things didn't go great, or these people did something wrong, if they were to leave, I was kind of left high and dry. And that is not something that I want to have to deal with. We had one employee that would come in when the store was closed, the business was closed. And, I don't know how much product they took. I know they took some, because he would leave money for, a bottle of hair color, which was, $2 or $3. I don't remember what the price was. But I don't know if he came in and took materials. What Salon Supplies and Interiors was, it was a beauty supply store and salon equipment manufacturer. We made shampoo back bars and styling stations and pedicure units and things like that, as well as sold. We were distributors for Belvedere and Pibbs and Global, and the internet pretty much killed that portion of the business, because there were so many places you could get cheap imports from China that a chair would look almost identical to a Global or a Belvedere chair, and it would cost, people would sell them for less than what a Global or a Belvedere chair would cost me. Would it fall apart in a year? Absolutely. Was it the quality of a Belvedere chair, for example? Definitely not. But, that's not what people are looking at if they're trying to get into a business. And again, I don't know what, what some of the employees did at Salon Supplies and Interiors. We didn't have many, but it was too labor-centric with, especially the building of the equipment and furniture and the installation. We would set up to do an installation, and then one of the guys that was supposed to come in at noon, let's say, on a day, he wouldn't show up. So we had to cancel the installation because, again, we didn't have a whole bunch of people that worked there. At most, on any one time, I think we had 6 employees. Again, you can't, we couldn't run it with more. It just wouldn't have paid. So that for that reason, I certainly will not do a business again that has employees. I don't mind relying on, if our family members, Liz and I, and maybe the kids, if we want to do something, maybe we could do something there. So, that's what we're looking forward to, looking forward to where we're going to move to where it's warm. and what are we going to do for money once we move to where it's warm? And, and we're not, I don't even, I wouldn't not consider someplace even foreign, although some of the places that are less expensive to live, I love House Hunters International. So when there's some place like Ecuador or Chile, I'm like, oh, let's take a look there, especially where it's warm. But, over the past month or two, there's been some issues in Chile and Ecuador. And, and I think Central America is always an issue. So kind of leaves you, I have Spanish roots and specifically Canary Islands. And again, I like the idea of an island. I'm not sure why. But, I wouldn't hesitate to look there. Obviously English-speaking countries like Australia and New Zealand are other options, although more expensive, albeit. So, so that's what, over the coming years, I'm guessing, we'll have to take a look and see, what we might want to do. And then there's the personal stuff. What else I want to do? I'd love to start another podcast. Obviously, keep this one going because I love telling you about about the stuff that goes on with me. But what do? I bought some domains over the years that I could use. One of them is called White Cane Warriors. Where I could, just interview, different folks who are blind and visually impaired and things that they do. A friend of mine is going to run in the Philly Marathon this weekend. Some of them do, other things that you say, man, that guy's blind and can do that. Yeah. So, I thought about that. I love, as I've mentioned plenty of times before, alternative rock. And, so what about, I have a domain called Alt Addict, and we own all the socials, Instagram and YouTube and even Facebook, I think, and Twitter, of course. Do I do one there? Would I be able to do interviews with bands, with alternative bands? So I don't know. So that's, I'd love to do one with Liz though. And, her timing, if she's still working, at Walden with all the time she spends at school, there wouldn't be enough time for her, and I've mentioned before, YouTube is something I'd like to do as well, but, we'll see. So those are things that I'm looking forward to. Now, I know before I get too long into this, I wanted to talk about my finger and like I mentioned earlier, when I have, when something starts to hurt, especially if it's near a joint, I think, it's just, psoriatic arthritis. So I had this issue with my index finger on my right hand. And each day I would say to Liz, man, my finger really hurts today. And she would look at it. She's like, oh, yeah, it's really swollen. And so each day I would show her and she's like, ooh, I don't like it. It's, there's some white around the nail. And it was the very end of my finger near the nail. And I'll put a picture on the show notes page. If you're not squeamish, take a look. And as time went on, as this week went on, it got puffier and more swollen and more white. And then towards the end, when I finally took action over the past weekend, it was also, there was green. So I put a picture up on Facebook and I said, any ideas? What should I do? People said, get to the, go see a doctor. And I'm like, it's Sunday. I'm not going to see a doctor. And, all these people chimed in and some said, go to a doctor. Some said warm compresses. Some said, soak it in this. Some said, do that. And one of my friends, someone I grew up with as a kid, her name is Jennifer Spector. She said if it were her finger, she would go to the emergency room. And I thought, well, I'm going to listen to her. I don't know why I didn't listen to some of the other folks, but she was the one that finally made me, go after we were running around on Sunday doing some errands, around 7, 8 o'clock on Sunday night. I said to Liz, come on, let's go. And I didn't want to go because, again, she has limited time off. I didn't want her to spend hours at the emergency room. So we have a couple of hospitals near us, and one of them is called Crozier Chester Medical Center. And you go to the emergency room there, and it's big. There's a lot of people there. It's busy. You could get anything from stabbing victims, gunshot wounds, plain old medical emergencies and whatnot. And so I knew it would be it'd be some time there, because it's not, it was my finger. I wasn't dying. I wasn't, in crazy amounts of pain, although, like I said, it hurt. And then there's this other hospital that's fairly close, and it's actually where it's attached to the gym that we used to go to, called the Healthplex. It's in Springfield. It's called Springfield Hospital. Imagine that. It's a very small hospital, very small. If I were if there was a real serious issue and I was at home and there was a serious issue, I would not go to Springfield Hospital, because I don't know what kind of treatment you would get there. So I would go to Crozier, and, there I think it's a teaching hospital, Crozier is. And but for this, I thought, let's go to Springfield Hospital. So we walked into the emergency room. It was empty. Liz signed up on a piece of paper, put down our information. And within 10 minutes, 8 minutes, someone called us to take some more information. I showed him my insurance card. Actually, I didn't have to show him my insurance card. He already had it on file, even though we had just switched. And within another 10 minutes, I was talking to a doctor and, some other person that also helped. She's the one that gave me a tetanus shot and whatnot. But the doctor looked at my finger and said, man, how did you withstand this pain for so long? I said, to be honest, I said, look at my other knuckles on that hand. You see how swollen they are. And I said, I have psoriatic arthritis. I just thought it was that. And she understood that. And so she ended up taking a scalpel. And and from watching TV, we watch a few medical shows, The Good Doctor, The Resident, a couple others that are slipping my mind at the moment. And they always say 10 blade. And she said, I'm going to take this scalpel. And I said, is that a 10 blade? And she said, oh, no, this is an 11. And she explained about a couple of others, and which I thought was funny. And Liz thought that was funny as well. And so she basically cut into it and drained it. And she said, it may hurt a little bit, when I do this, but, more than likely once we get all the, the pus and everything else out, it will immediately start to feel better. And as she was cutting in, she says, does this hurt you? And I explained to her about the last eye surgery I had, which was for a detached retina, which was the most painful thing I've ever gone through, the surgery, not the actual, the detaching of the retina. And I said to her, it's not, I said, maybe it's more than a paper cut, but it's certainly not the surgery to fix the detached retina. And she squeezed it out, and Liz was like, ooh. And I said, what? And she explained to me that she said there's a few different colors coming out. And I said, well, what colors? There was white and green and obviously a little blood. So I guess it looked like the flag of Italy. So, they did that, and, she put some medicine on it. She gave me some oral meds because she was a little concerned because I was, some of the psoriatic medicine I'm on. She was afraid that maybe there would be a greater risk of infection spreading. So she did that. And like I said, I had a tetanus shot, which I didn't remember when the last one was. And they told me it wouldn't hurt me if it was, if I got another one. So I did to play it safe. I'm not sure. What it was, but as I'm sitting there and I said, this was the second time that I thought something was psoriatic related when it really had nothing to do with that. And, so now I hope I'm more aware the next time I feel a pain or something, that I realize that, might not be psoriatic related and to get it checked out. So, so that's probably the biggest takeaway of the year for me, to not just assume it's something, and to have it checked out. Listen to my mom; she would always say, "Oh, you have a cough, you should go to the doctor." I'm not going to get to that point, I hope, but at least for when I have aches and pains, don't always assume it's the psoriatic disease. So that is episode 49 on my 55th birthday, the iCantCU podcast. And again, if you have something to add or have a comment or have an idea for a show, I'd love to hear from you. Area code 646-926-6350 or iCantCU podcast@gmail.com. Remember, iCantCU is only 7 letters long. ICANTCU podcast@gmail.com. You can also check out previous episodes of the show at iCantCU.com. And next week I have a great one. I'm excited for it. I'm going to talk about, since it'll be a Thanksgiving episode, what happens on Thanksgiving is football. And I'm in a fantasy football league that my team is terrible this year, but I'm going to have some of the folks who are in the league with me. We are all either blind or visually impaired. So yeah, my team is terrible, though. Terrible this year. I was in the finals last year. I will finish in the basement this year, most likely, unless there's a miracle. But again, I appreciate you listening to the iCantCU podcast. If you have a second, I'd love if you could rate, review, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Again, David Benge on all the socials. If you have a chance to get over to Facebook, facebook.com/David Benge, and any kind of donation for my birthday fundraising would be appreciated for the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. Again, thanks for listening and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the iCantCU podcast. Follow David on Twitter. He is at David Benge.